لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف صدق الله العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Last week I heard you guys went over the importance of studying the Seerah, correct? And you went into a bit of the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ. Right, this is the ancestry of Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim. You went over that? The lineage, right? The lineage. So I was thinking, I talked to Sheikh Yafra as well regarding this, that we should go into the detail of the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ. Because generally when the historians, the scholars, when they write the biography of Rasulullah SAW, this is where they start off from. They go all the way back and they connect it all to the time of the Prophet ﷺ and connect it to his family, right? So, and because that's important as well, right? To know the lineage all the way back, how the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ connects to his family, right? So it goes all the way back. So that's why they discuss this as well, because that plays a role in setting the stage for the coming of Rasulullah SAW, right? So you need to know the background as well. That's why we go into that. Otherwise, generally, when it comes to genealogy, when it comes to our ancestry, nowadays we hardly know. The furthest we can go back is your father's name, your grandfather's name, and after that, your great-grandfather's name, maybe. After that, it's gone. You don't know who was before that, right? But this was a time when they used to memorize the ancestry, the genealogy of the whole family. Right? And this was very common. And they give importance to that. And we'll come to that as well. To just let you know, they used to even memorize the genealogy of horses. They had powerful memories. So they used to memorize the genealogy of horses as well. Because that mattered to them, right? That where did this horse come from, right? So they used to memorize that as well. So anyways, going back regarding the genealogy of the Prophet ﷺ, these kids, I hope they don't get bored. I'll try to make it a bit interesting for them. So I won't go into much detail regarding this, we don't have much time, but at the same time, we need to know a bit which is connected to the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So going back, regarding the genealogy of the Prophet ﷺ, you go back all the way back to the pure Arabs. They say that the Arabs are, or you can say the standard narrative, right? So obviously all this knowledge or information we get regarding this, it's all based on, you can say some is based on the historical knowledge of the individuals that established this in the past. Some are taken from, this is a standard narrative that has been preserved. Because obviously you can get authentic information regarding this. We'll come to that as well when it comes to the genealogy of the Prophet himself, right? So basically this is the standard narrative and understanding regarding the genealogy of the Arabs, because that is where the connection comes to the life of Rasulullah SAW. How did the Arabs get established in Hijaz, in Arabia, right? So this goes all the way back. So they say that the standard narrative is that the Arabs have been divided into two broad categories. One is the Arab al-Ba'ida, right? The Arab al-Ba'ida, which are those Arabs, you call them the ancient Arabs, and they were living thousands of years ago, right? These are known as the ancient Arabs, the extinct, and obviously these civilization, they got extinct, and some of them have been mentioned in the Quran as well, right? So, for example, anybody? Ad, Thamud, right? These are nations that used to live in the past, and they used to live in this area. So these are nations that used to live, thousands of years ago before Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and so on. And they got extinct. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wiped them out, and there's no remnants of this civilization left. And individuals from this, nation left. So that's why they call them the Arab al-Ba'ida, the ancient Arabs. And then you get the second category of the Arabs, you call them the Arab al-Baqiya, the remaining Arabs, right? The Arab al-Baqiya. And they are also divided into two, from those who are remaining now, who are still left from the Arab al-Baqiya. You categorize them into two. One is the Al-Arab al-Ariba and Al-Arab al-Musta'riba, right? In other words, the pure Arabs, one category, and the second category are those who became Arabs, right? They developed, or they took the Arabic language and they developed the Arabic language and they established themselves as Arabs. So you call them the Musta'riba, right? These are the two other categories. So the pure Arabs and those Arabs who became Arabs later on. And they took the Arabic language from the pure Arabs. When it comes to the pure Arabs, they say Qahtan, this individual's name Qahtan, he is the founder of this nation. He was we don't have much information regarding that, or what era he lived in, what century he lived in, but he was considered one of the first ones from this, from the establishment of the Arab, Ariba, which are the pure Arabs. From his descendants, all of these Arabs established themselves. Now in the Quran, you may know the story, which one of the surahs is also mentioned, named after this individual by the name of Saba. Right? You know Saba? Right? The story of Saba. So one of the surahs is called Saba. Right? I can't go into this story because it's very long, but just to give you a hint regarding that, you can study regarding this as well. The people of Saba. So this individual Saba, the Prophet ﷺ was once asked by an individual, Abdullah ibn Abbas relates this, Imam Ahmad rahmatullah has recorded this narration as well, that one individual came and asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, who is this individual Saba? Right? Was he a man? Was he a woman? Was he a nation? What was he? Right? So then the Prophet ﷺ explained regarding that individual by the name of Saba. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned he had 10 sons. Okay. Before we go into that, just regarding Saba, the story is mentioned in the Quran as well. If you know the story of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam and Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, right? In the story of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, you know the story of the queen who had the huge throne, right? You guys know that? The queen with the huge throne. So where was that queen? Where did she live? She was part of the people of Saba, right? When the bird that went around and went away from the army of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, and this bird found this nation of Saba worshipping the sun, right? And this queen was from that nation. So this nation was living in Yemen, the southern area, Arabia, this Yemen area, which is now Yemen today. So this the area where this nation was living. And so in that story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them a lot. And then after that, they disobeyed Allah, they did not follow the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, dispersed this nation, okay? So they built a dam, the dam was destroyed, it destroyed all of their crops and all of the properties that they had. And because of that, their descendants, those who were living there, the nations dispersed into different areas. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned from this nation of Saba, he had 10 sons. And from these 10 come the pure Arabs, okay? And the Prophet ﷺ named them as well. Just quickly, Masjid, Kinda, Al-Azd, Al-Ash'ariyun, Himyar, Al-Ma'ar. So these are 6 names of those from the people of Saba who remain in Yemen, in that area, even after this destruction. And 4 of them left this area and they went towards up north Sham, right? Which is the greater Syria, this area. So they went towards Sham and their names were Lakham, Juzam, Amila, and Ghassan. Right? So you probably know Ghassan. You probably know Himyar, right? Himyari. People, some of the family names are Himyari nowadays. So you got that as well. So these are considered the pure Arabs who left Yemen. They came into Arabia and they established themselves there, and from there the descendants came down, right? So these are considered the pure Arabs that were there. And then you have the other Arabs who developed the Arabic language, the Musta'liba, who became Arabs. This was coming down to Adnan, who was the ancestry, the genealogy of the Prophet comes to Adnan. He is from the ancestors of the Prophet ﷺ. This individual by the name of Adnan, the last one, which is confirmed in his family, he was from one of these Arabs who were who took the Arabic language. So Qahtan was a pure Arab, from the pure Arabs. So his descendants are all pure Arabs. So they were, and then when it comes to Qahtan, on the other side, also Ibrahim والسلام, comes in the picture as well, right? So Ibrahim والسلام, comes in the picture where, although he was not a pure Arab, right? Where was Ibrahim والسلام, born?
Babylon.
Anybody? Ur, right? Which is in Iraq, close to Babylon, right? So Ibrahim والسلام, was in Iraq, right? His language was not Arabic, right? It was very close to the Hebrew language, right? So Ibrahim والسلام, his family, his son Ismail والسلام, they did not have the Arabic language. The Arabic language came into their family afterwards, from Ismail والسلام, right? So Ibrahim والسلام, although they're not contemporaries, Qahtan and Ibrahim والسلام, came afterwards. Qahtan was before, but basically these are the two. When you go up there, you look at these two names, which are regarding the pure Arabs at that time. So Adnan was one of those who adopted the Arabic language, who was one of the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ. Now from Adnan to Rasulullah ﷺ, there is about 20 ascendants, right? The gap in between Adnan and the Prophet ﷺ, there are 20 names, you can say, right? So in other words, Adnan's son, grandson, and so on, all his descendants, all the way to the Prophet ﷺ, there are 20 altogether, right? So Adnan was the one who adopted the Arabic language, and through his generations came the Prophet ﷺ. When was his era? They say Adnan's son, which is, his name was Ma'ad. This we'll study that in the genealogy of the Prophet as well. His name was Ma'ad. They say Ma'ad was living at the time of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. Right, so it goes back all the way to, so between Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, how many years? 570, right? Between Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there are 507 years. The Prophet was born 570 CE, right? So Ma'ad, who was the son of Adnan, was living at the time of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, which means his father was about, you can say, 30, 40 years before that, right? So it's very close to the time of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. This was Adnan, right? So Adnan and then his son and so on, all the way down to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So now when it comes to the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, you can say there are three categories in terms of its authenticity, right? How authentic is the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ? The scholars divide this into three categories. One category is that amount of ascendants of the Prophet ﷺ which are confirmed. And then the second category, there's some doubts here and there. And the third category is, it's just names put out there. We only get that information through the Torah, right? So all of the Torah will mention it, all these names, all the way up to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. So three categories. One is from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his ascendants, all the way to Adnan. Okay, this is the first category. And this is the category that is confirmed. We can say with full conviction, full knowledge, full authenticity that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam's lineage goes all the way up to Adnan, which is confirmed. From Adnan until Ismail and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, it's all based on information here and there. There's no confirmation regarding that. We cannot confirm that this is exactly those individuals who are from the ascendants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So that's the second category, which it's not confirmed. And then after that, the third category, from Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam all the way up to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, the first human being. That is all names that we get from the Torah, and whatever was mentioned there, we just use that to make the link, right, between all these ascendants all the way up to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. And regarding that as well, when you study the Torah, when you look into the Torah, the Jewish community, they have this theory that the time between Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is how many years? What do they say?
570.
From Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you say how many years roughly? They break it down to by mentioning all of these names, right? So the lineage is there until Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, until Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, and then Adnan and to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So obviously they calculate the ancestry based on how long every generation is in between the two, and slowly you get the numbers, and based on that they come up with a figure which is around 6,000 years, right? But science and archaeology don't accept that, right? So Islamically, when we look at that, we don't have to accept that as well, right? They may have this number, they may have this many years, that from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam till Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there's 6,000 years people are living until now. But we don't have to accept that. If the science says something else, that's fine as well with us, right? So we don't have to really go in depth into that. Whatever years it is what it is, right? But until Adnan, we know that it's confirmed the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ. This is the first category. So last week you went over the names of the ascendants of the Prophet ﷺ. I'll just go over that as well for those who are not here. Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, right? So you should at least know this much. Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib. You should also know bin Hashim, right? Bin Abdi Munaf, bin Qusay. At least until here you should know, because from Qusay onwards it gets very interesting, right? This is where the development starts around Makkah, right? And things get to establish from here. So Qusay comes into the picture, and from that things get established. So we're going to study that as well from Qusay onwards. But at least till Qusay, a person should know the genealogy of the Prophet ﷺ. So Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim bin Abdi Munaf bin Qusay bin Kilab bin Murrah bin Ka'b bin Lu'i bin Ghalib bin Fahr bin Malik bin Nadar bin Kinana bin Khuzayma bin Mudrika bin Ilyas bin Mudar bin Nazar bin Ma'ad bin Adnan. Right? So this is what is confirmed. I think the current kids, they memorize this. You guys memorize it? When you studied Seerah? Yes, you did. I made you guys do this. I made you guys memorize this lineage. So anyway, so these are the names of the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ. So amongst them, we don't have much knowledge of each individual who was part of this ancestry, but some of them were famous, and we will go over those famous individuals so that at least we can get a picture of how the ancestry was and how it's connected to the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So regarding this as well, the Prophet ﷺ, he himself mentioned something regarding his lineage, right? To establish the fact that he was born in a pure lineage, right? This was very important, right? That the Prophet ﷺ was born in a pure lineage. So he mentioned that, how it goes back to a certain individual. Regarding Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had a very pure lineage as well for 4 generations, right? Anybody know that? What is it? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, his son?
Ismail alayhi salam.
Okay, so I think we should do this as well. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, how many sons? Ismail and Ishaq, right? So these are the 2 main sons of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Now the thing to know about this as well is, after Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, the prophets amongst the Bani Israel onwards, they came in the lineage of Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? So all the prophets that came after Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, they came in the line of Ishaq and his descendants. Got that? All the way until Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. The only prophet who came after Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in the lineage of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was through who? Ismail, on the other side, right? So that's why the Jews and Christians who were living in Medina and so on, they expected the last prophet that they were waiting for to come from the lineage of Ishaq, right? And they were waiting for that. When they found out from Ismail, they never accepted that, right? Well, why from Ismail for, right? So that's why the majority of the ancestry descendants of Ismail were not preserved as well, because they didn't care about that, right? They cared more about Ishaq. That's why it's more confirmed on that side. So Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. From Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam, 4 generations there were prophets. So the Prophet mentioned that Ibrahim والسلام, was so blessed that his descendants were so blessed in the fact that his family goes on 4 generations as prophets. So he said, Kareem ibn Kareem ibn Kareem ibn Kareem. Right? Kareem ibn Kareem ibn Kareem ibn Kareem. The noble, the son of a noble, the son of a noble, the son of a noble. And who are they? Yusuf ibn Yaqub ibn Ishaq ibn Ibrahim. Right? So Ibrahim والسلام, his son Ishaq والسلام, a prophet, his son Yaqub والسلام, is a prophet, and his son Yusuf والسلام, is a prophet. Right? Like that. And then after that it changes. Right? It goes a few generations down. This is a direct, generation, right? Directly linked, right? One after the other they came, and after that, after some generation after that, more prophets came in that lineage. So but on this side it was Ismail والسلام, who was living in Mecca, and from Ismail والسلام, he married into a tribe called Jurhum, right? He married into a tribe called Jurhum, and you need to go in, I can't go into the story, it's going to be too long, but you need to go into the story of Ibrahim والسلام, Ismail والسلام, how they were established. It's very famous, right? How they were established in Mecca, and then the tribe Jurhum came and they settled in Mecca. Ismail والسلام, married into Jurhum. And this is how Jurhum was there in Mecca. We're going to come to that as well later on, right? So just remember that Jurhum tribe came at the time of Ismail والسلام, although they were living in the outskirts of Mecca well before that, right? But they came into Mecca during the time of Ismail والسلام, when they found out that there's water there in Mecca, which was Zamzam, right? So they were established in Mecca. So anyway, so coming to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ regarding his lineage, he mentions that إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى كِنَانَ مِنْ وَلَدِ إِسْمَعِيلِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected Kinana from the children of Ismail. So that comes, when we went over the lineage, we went over one of the names, Kinana, that comes in his lineage. So Allah selected Kinana from the children of Ismail. وَاصْطَفَى قُرَيْشْ مِنْ Kinana, and then Allah selected Quraysh from Kinana. And then wastafa min Quraysh Banu Hashim, and Allah selected from Quraysh Banu Hashim, and then Allah selected me, wastafali min Bani Hashim. Allah selected me from Banu Hashim. Right? So the Prophet mentioned really the most important figures from his lineage, and to establish the fact that his lineage was very pure. And he mentioned those individuals who played a great role in history, which is linked to the Prophet ﷺ as well, and inshallah we'll go over each one of these, right, to connect them to the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So lineage was very important to these individuals, and they used to establish that as well. So when it comes to, yes?
Sorry. Yeah. What do you mean by pure lineage?
So pure in the sense that they weren't known for doing something which was very sinful, committing zina, all that kind of stuff, right? All that kind of stuff. So it was very pure lineage. They were well known, very famous. They were known for establishing many things, all the good things, right? So in that sense, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept his lineage pure, right? So when it comes to Kinana, he was a very important figure in history as well. He was known for his wisdom, he was known for his poetry, he was known for his bravery. So he established himself in his era with all of these good qualities, and people looked up to him, people were connected to him as well, and people really respected him in that manner. So Kinana was a very important figure in history as well. And then part of this lineage, we hear the name Quraysh, right? We hear the name Quraysh. So Quraysh, when we went over the lineage of the Prophet, there was no individual named Quraysh. Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim bin Abdul Manaf, and so on. Quraysh was not mentioned, so who's Quraysh, right? So this is important as well because this is mentioned in the Quran, right? So we need to know what Quraysh is. Who is Quraysh, right? So when it comes to the name Quraysh, they say that Quraysh was the name of a title. It's a title that was given to someone, right? It's a title that was given to someone, Quraysh. So it's not a name of an individual, it was a title that was given. Why? Because Quraysh, some say that it meant trade. In other words, that individual established a very, strong trade agreements with people. So he was very experienced in trading. Some say that this individual was the one who gathered many tribes together and he was able to unify them, right? So that's why he was known as Quraysh. And some say that he conquered many areas, because of that he was known as Quraysh. But who is Quraysh referring to? When we say Quraysh, who does it refer to? Who does it go back to, right? So there's a couple of opinions regarding that. But some say that this goes back all the way to two individuals in the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ, one by the name of Fihr and the other one Nadar, right? Fihr and Nadar, right? These two are from the ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ. So Fihr is number 12, right? From the 20, Fihr comes in number 12, the 12th great-great-great-grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, and Nadar is the 14th in the lineage or the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ. So they say Fihr is more, he was more known to be of this individual who established the trade, caravans or trade routes and so on, and he was well known for gathering the people. So that's why they say, when we say Quraysh, it goes back to Fihr, from him and his descendants. That is where this title was given to these individuals and his descendants by the name of Quraysh, right? So it goes back to the name, the individual Fihr, right? From his descendants comes the Quraysh tribe, right? Now, after that, inshallah, we'll just go over some of the individuals who are very famous and well established in its ancestry of the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll go into detail about that. Number one is Qusay, right? Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim bin Abd Manaf bin Qusay. So not too far away from the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. So they say Qusay, he was obviously from the Quraysh, and he was the one who began the leadership of the Quraysh, right? So because we know during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Quraysh is a very established tribe, right? Individuals, and they're very famous, and they're well known for many things. So who established this leadership? It was Qusay who came into the picture, right? Qusay was the one who came, and he was the one who established the leadership of Quraysh in Mecca. And his time frame is about 170 years before the Prophet ﷺ, right? So 400 years after Isa ﷺ, 170 years before the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So not too far away. So this is when Qusay comes in the picture. So he comes and he is able to establish the leadership, bring people together, unify all the tribes, and he was able to strengthen the political, structure and strength in Mecca, right, in this area. So he was the one who did this. And then he was the one also, there was another tribe that by the name of Khuza'a, right, Khuza'a. Khuza'a comes in the picture when, the tribe Jurhum, we mentioned, from the time of Ismail والسلام, who were living in Mecca in that area for about 2,000 years. When Jurhum was there, Khuza'a, this tribe was a very strong tribe. They were the ones who came and attacked Jurhum and dispersed Jurhum from that area. Okay, so there was a skirmish between Khuza'a and Jurhum. Khuza'a comes into the picture, and there's a battle between the two, there's a skirmish between the two. So Jurhum had to leave, they were defeated, but before they left, something else happened as well. Was when Jurhum left, they completely wiped out the well of Zamzam. Right? So Jurhum was the one who completely wiped out. This was about 300 years before the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So they're the ones who completely wiped out the Zamzam well. They covered it up, and there was no traces left of that. Khuza'a tried to look for it, they couldn't find it. So Khuza'a, after that, they were established in this area. So Qusay was the one who came into the picture, and at that time in his era, he was the one who defeated the Khuza'a and took them out of Mecca. And this is how he established his hold in Mecca and the surrounding areas, and he established the political power in that area as well. And he had his own way of doing things, right? He was very clever, he was very tactical as well. And one of the things he did was how to defeat the Khuza'a tribe was that he married into his family. So what Qusay did was he married into the family of Khuza'a, and after that slowly he established his hold and his strength and his knowledge and his experience, all of these things slowly established there, and a time came when he had to go in confrontation against the Khuza'a, and he defeated them and took them out, right? So this is how Qusay established himself in Mecca and the surrounding areas. He did many other things as well from that time. He was the one who built and established the Darul Nadwa, right? This is the parliament. So obviously, when things got political as well, and the political, issues were coming forward and being established there, obviously you need members in the parliament and in the community to come and decide on things. So he established a Darul Nadwa. Everybody knows what Darul Nadwa is? This comes into the Seerah, okay? This comes into the life of the Prophet ﷺ because in the beginning of Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ used to have secret meetings in Darul Nadwa. So during his time as well, he was there. So this came all the way down from who? Qusay, right? The one who established Darul Nadwa, it comes all the way down, and that establishment was still there until the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He also used this area, this house, you can say, or this platform, to have secret meetings and make decisions and so on. They used to gather in Darul Nadwa, right? This is going to come into this era. So Qusay was the one who established this in Mecca as well. He also took custody of the Kaaba, right? He became the custodian of the Kaaba as well. His family took the responsibilities as well. And then he established and gave out many responsibilities to his family members, right? So taking care of the Kaaba, giving water to those who come and visit the Kaaba, the Hajis, right, the pilgrims who come and visit the Kaaba, giving them, taking care of them, feeding them, hosting them. And at the same time, the keys to the Kaaba as well, he got a hold of that as well and took the responsibility of taking care of that as well. So all of these responsibilities, Qusay was the one who came and established all of these things, right? So this is just 170 years before the time of the Prophet. So you can see how slowly things are being, coming into form, right? Things are being established now from the time of Qusay onwards. Why? Because the Prophet is coming soon, right? So in this way, these things have been established in Makkah. The responsibilities have been given now. Taking care of the Hujjaj, taking care of the pilgrims, right? And he used to also, when the pilgrims used to come, he used to have a fundraiser as well to, collect money so that later on he can use that wealth as well to use it on the Hujjaj and the pilgrims and the people who are poor and so on. So in this way, Qusay really established himself in Makkah, and all these responsibilities were given to his family members and his tribes. So in this way, he distributed all of these responsibilities. That's why in the Quran as well, there's a verse that Allah Allah mentions to the people of Quraysh, Makkah, that Allah gave you all of these blessings, and they used to take pride in this, right? They used to take pride in these responsibilities they had. So Allah mentions, أَجَعَلْتُمْ سِقَايَةَ الْحَاجِ وَعِمَارَةَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. That do you think that giving water to the pilgrims and maintaining the Kaaba, right? This was the responsibility of the Quraysh, which came down from Qusay, right? So they used to take pride in this, and sometimes they used to give preference to this over everything else. So they thought that if we start to believe in the Prophet ﷺ and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all these responsibilities are going to be taken away from us. So they gave preference to that over Iman, right? So Allah mentions this there to mention as a favor. So anyway, so this helped Qusay establish all of these things, and then he lived in that area for a while until he passed away in Mecca, and he was buried in the graveyard called Hujun, right? Graveyard called Hujun, which is in Mecca, which is still there till today, right? So Qusay is buried there in Mecca. Then his son comes in, Abdul Manaf. He was given responsibility as well. Manaf means the raised one. So they used to give different names to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Manaf, the raised one, the slave of Manaf, the raised son of the raised one, Abdul Manaf, that's how he got the name. So he was known for he was very handsome, or he had very leadership skills, and he continued the legacy of his father Qusay onwards. And his real name was Mangera. And then comes into the picture his son Amr, right? So his son Amr comes into the picture now, and he is also famous of establishing many things. So his name was Amr, right? Generally, we don't know him as Amr, right? But this individual, his son, his name was Amr. And this individual, Amr, what he did was, because he had all of the responsibilities to take care of the Hujjaj, so it was distributed amongst the tribes, and in his lot, for his tribe or for his family, came the responsibility of taking care of the Hujjaj, the pilgrims, feeding them, giving them water, and so on. So what they used to do was, when the pilgrims used to come to Mecca and do the tawaf and so on, and come to visit the area, they used to give them food, and in that food they used to give them soup which had some meat inside it, right? So this was generally what was distributed amongst the people. Now this individual by the name of Amr, he came and he got his own recipe, right? He changed the food. So he started, they say he started breaking up bread and barley, and he started adding that to the soup. So bread and barley, he started adding that into the soup. So when you break the bread, make it into pieces, and he used to throw it into the soup and give it another mixture, and then he used to feed the people as well. And it gave it more taste, and people loved that more. So in the Arabic language, breaking up bread, or grinding barley and so on, it's called Hashem, right? It's called Hashem. So he was given the name Hashim. Okay, he was given the name Hashim. His name is Amr, but because of this act of his, he was known as Hashim now, the one who breaks the bread. So from there on, he was famous more by this name, Hashim. That's why his children, descendants, are called what? The Banu Hashim. The Hashama Banu Hashim, right? The Banu Hashama, right? So the children, so Banu Hashim comes into the Seerah as well. When we go over the life of the Prophet, you will hear this name a lot, Banu Hashim, the children of Hashim. So this is where it goes up to. So this grandson of Qusay was Hashim. So he was known as Amr, but he was given this title, Hashim, because of what he did. Now Hashim also did many things. He was the one who came and established the economic power in Mecca. One was the political power, which was established by Qusay, and Hashim comes into the picture, and he comes and establishes the economic power in Mecca as well. So in other words, a lot of wealth started to come into Mecca, and he had his own ways of doing things. So he was the one who introduced this idea of traveling towards the north and south. And this was forced by the fact that they fell into a drought and a famine, and there was no food in Mecca, and people were dying because of that hunger. It was a severe drought. People were just ready for death. That's how severe it was, right? They used to dig their own graves and thinking that, we'll just wait until we die. So he couldn't tolerate that. So Hashim, what he did was he thought of an idea, wait a minute, everybody comes towards Mecca for the pilgrim. Why not we go to their areas, right? Why not we travel? So he established this traveling route that let's go for business towards the north and south. North towards Sham, this area, and down south towards Yemen, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? إِلَى فِي قُرَيْشٍ إِلَى فِيهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. So in the winter and the summer, he used to travel north and south. So in the summer, he used to go up north, and in the winter, he used to go down south, right? So this became the traveling route. So in other words, he was saying that let's just go down south. What we can do is do business there, or get all the products from these two areas, bring it into Mecca, and when people come, let's sell it to them and make money, right? So we can actually travel. So this wasn't there before. This idea of traveling up north and south wasn't there before. It was Hashim who came forward and who established this traveling route and this idea. So this is how slowly Hashim brought in the wealth into Mecca. When people used to come, they used to sell all these products that they used to get from north and south, these two areas. So this is how his family became wealthy, and because of that, he became very generous as well. He used to spend on a lot of people as well. The people who used to come, when he tried, when he spent on them, that's what Allah mentions. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ وَآمَنَهُم مِّنْ خَوْفٍ. This was a blessing that Allah gave you. Allah mentioned this was a blessing I gave you, that you were hungry, Allah gave you food. So because of this blessing, worship this house. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا, worship the Lord of this house. Right? So this should be your reaction. You should worship the Lord of this house. This is from your ancestry. Allah gave you this blessing that you were able to travel north and south and establish His economic power inside Mecca. So because of this, he also became famous because of establishing this route, and he gained honor, respect, prestige, and all of these things mattered in those days, right? When you have all these things and establish them, then people look up to you. So he was one of those individuals who was very famous in that, and everybody looked up to him, and people used to travel just to look for him as well, and just to visit him when they used to come for pilgrimage. And because of this, obviously, when one person becomes very famous, then there's rivalry as well, right? Within the tribes, within family members, within distant members. So from there, there was some rivalry from Abd Munaf and Umayyah, these individuals that were living in his time, some from his family, some from outside his family. So this rivalry was there, and it got established from there. Even after that, from that time onwards, even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, even after the Prophet ﷺ, this rivalry continues. between the Banu Hashim and between Banu Umayyah, Bani Abd Shams, right? This continued. So it started from there. So in this way, Hashim established himself in this area. Now, Banu Hashim, he had many multiple wives, and one of his wife was from Yathrib, which was Medina afterwards, right? So the name of Medina before was Yathrib. So he got married to a woman in Medina as well, in Yathrib. And after that, Hashim went on a business trip. He went into Sham, and he was with his wife that was from Medina as well, Yathrib as well. So when he was traveling in Sham, he passed away there on his business trip. And he was buried where? Anybody know where Hashim was buried?
Gaza.
Gaza. Palestine.
Hashim.
Yes. So Hashim was buried in Gaza. Okay, they have a Masjid of Sayyidina Hashim. Right? And so in this way, Hashim, he was buried in Gaza, he passed away there. So his wife, that was from Yathrib, she was pregnant at the time, so she went back to Medina. Right? She went back to Yathrib, and when she went there, her son was born in Medina. So when her son was born, her son's name, they named her son Shayba, Shaybatul Hamd. Okay? They named her son Shaybatul Hamd. Now Shaybatul Hamd, what does Shayba mean? White hair, right? Like an old person, right? So when you get white hair, you call this a Shayba, right? A person has become old now. So why would they call a newborn child Shayba for? Right. Right. So when he was born, he had a white streak of hair on his head. Okay, so when he was born, he had that, like, a sign. Right, so he had a white streak of hair on his head, so because of that, they named him Shaybatul Hamd. The white hair of the praised, right? He was a praised one. So Shaybatul Hamd was his name. So they named him Shaybatul Hamd. So afterwards, what happened was his uncle, okay, Shaybatul Hamd, his uncle, whose name was Muttalib, okay, his name was Muttalib, who was a brother of Hashim, right, who was a brother of Hashim. He came into Medina, he came into Yathrib, and he was on his trip, and he came into Medina, and he saw this child, Shaybatul Hamd, and he said, this is from my family, he looks just like one of ours, right? So he found out that this was the son of Hashim, right? So he started to make claim for them. He started to say that he shouldn't be here in Yathrib, he should be in Mecca. He should be with our family. So he started making claim for that, and he wanted to take him back to Mecca with his family. They objected. The family, the maternal family of Shaybatul Hamd also came, and they said that no, we're not going to let him go. But he convinced them, he persuaded them, and said that look, it's better for this child that he grows up with his family members in Mecca, that he will be brought up in the proper manner as well, and he can be brought up with family as well. So after that, they agreed, right? So as a young child, Shaybatul Hamd, he started to travel to Mecca with Muttalib, the uncle, his uncle. So now when he entered into Mecca with Shaybatul Hamd, Al-Muttalib entered into Mecca, people, they thought that Al-Muttalib went to Yathrib and he brought back a slave with him. Because in those days, slave trade was there, and generally people would buy a young slave because it would be beneficial for them, right? So this young child was with Al-Muttalib entering into Mecca, so they thought that this was his slave, so they named Al-Muttalib what? Abdul Muttalib. That this slave is who? Abdul Muttalib. He's a slave of Al-Muttalib. So this is where Shaybatul Hamd got the name Abdul Muttalib, right? This is where the name came from. And Abdul Muttalib turned out to be who now? The grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So this is how Abdul Muttalib, whose a real name was Shaybatul Hamd, later on becomes the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is how Abdul Muttalib comes in this manner. Now, we'll just quickly mention some stories about Abdul Muttalib. This is where Abdul Muttalib comes in the picture because he is directly connected, very close to the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and very important, significant events occur before the coming of the Prophet ﷺ. So one of the main events, 3 events that occur, which are related to Abdul Muttalib. Number 1 is the rediscovery of Zamzam. Right? So Zamzam has been wiped out for so long, right? No one knows where it is. So the rediscovery of Zamzam, a story regarding that. And then also the, the vow that he took to sacrifice his son Abdullah. Abdullah is who? The father of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So the vow he took to sacrifice his son Abdullah, and the third event was regarding Abraha and the elephants, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Fil, right? We're not going to go into them, it's a long story, and everybody knows the story of the Fil, the elephants that came to destroy the Kaaba. But the other two events, inshallah, we'll just go through them quickly. So regarding the discovery of Zamzam, right? So this was hidden for over 300 years, right? No one knew where the well of Zamzam was. Abdul Muttalib, one day he went to sleep and he had a dream. Okay, in his dream, someone said to him, "Uhfur Tayyiba," right? "Uhfur Tayyiba." In other words, dig up this pure thing. It was called Tayyiba, this pure thing. So Abdul Muttalib, he was confused. What do you mean Tayyiba? What is Tayyiba? Never heard of this before. So he did not pay attention to it. He woke up next morning, he went to carried on what he did throughout the day, and the next day he went to sleep again. At night he went to sleep. Again he saw a dream. Someone came into his dream and said, "Uhfur barra," right? Dig up this precious thing, barra, this precious thing. Still, he didn't know what it was, right? So he woke up, went on with his day. The next night again he had the third dream, and in this dream that individual he said, "Uhfur Zamzam," dig up Zamzam, right? So first Tayyiba, Barra, and then Zamzam. So the third night when he had this dream, and in that dream he was told that now you need to dig up Zamzam. So he said, "What is Zamzam?" So the one who mentioned Zamzam, he described what Zamzam was. He said, "Zamzam is لا تفنى ولا تذم تسقي الحجيج الأعظم بين الفرث والدم عند قرية النمل عند نقرة الغراب الأعصم." So he gave the full description of where and what is this Zamzam, right? What is it and where is it, right? So he said Zamzam, it will never fail or dry up. This well, which has water in it, when it's exposed, it will never, dry up and never fail to give you water. It will continuously give you water. It will water the pilgrims that will come, and it lies between the dung and blood, the feces and blood, near the nest of the crow with the white legs and the ant's nest. Right? So he gave the description of where you can find it. So this is all symbolism, right? Da Vinci Code, right? Some codes are going on here, right? So symbolism is going on here. So he was given all of these codes. So Abdul Muttalib is what is going on here? How do I, the ant's nest and the crow with the white legs, and there's dung and feces and blood, and what is this going on, right? So how am I gonna find this? So next day he went around the Kaaba. He was visiting the Kaaba. He was around the Kaaba, and next thing you know, he finds feces, dung, and blood on the ground in a certain area, right? So we know where the well of Zamzam is now, right? So it's not too far from the Kaaba, right? So in that area, and obviously that was left there because they slaughtered some camels. So the day before or some day they slaughtered some camels, so the dung and feces were left there and the blood was left there. Okay, the dung is there, the blood is there. And then in the distance he saw that there was a crow there with white legs that came at that moment. So he saw that as well. And then he saw the colony of ants nearby. So he put all of those symbols together and said that this must be the place where this well of Zamzam is. So he called his son. At that time he only had one son. His name was Harith. Okay? His name was Harith. And he called his son, and he said, "Let's dig." So him and his son are digging in this area. Remember the story of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and his son building the Kaaba, right? So here Abdul Muttalib and his son Harith are digging the well of Zamzam. So they're digging, and while they're digging, they're making noise and all that, and all of a sudden the Quraysh who are there around Mecca, they come forward and they say, "Well, what's happening here? What are you digging for? Why are you digging in this area? You're gonna, damage this area. You're gonna, this is Kaaba. This is a holy land, holy place. You shouldn't be digging here." They didn't pay attention. They continued digging until slowly they hit the rock, and they hit the rim of the well of Zamzam. And as soon as they did that, the Quraysh, they realized, whoa, there's something here. And then when they opened it up, water started gushing forth, and they found the well of Zamzam there. Now Quraysh came forward. Whoa, this is our land. We've been established here for so many years, right? This belongs to us. Right? So they started making claim for it, right? although Abdul Muttalib and his son did all the work and they were given all the symbols, Quraysh comes and they try to take possession of this Zamzam because it's very famous, right? It's been hidden for so many years. So they try their best to get a hold of this. They say, no, we this is ours, right? They claim to this. Abdul Muttalib said no, right? This, I was been given the vision and the symbols. We were the one who dug this up and so on. So they were, all the confrontation started, dispute started. They were almost about to go into a battle, right? So they said, okay, wait, let's settle this issue in another way. The way we can settle this dispute is let's go to the witch, right? In those days, they used to have witches and fortune tellers and so on. They used to go there and to give them solutions for the disputes and so on. So they had a witch close by from the Bani Sa'ad, from this tribe Bani Sa'ad. They had a witch there which was very famous to solve their disputes. So they said that let's go to the witch and let's see what she says, right? Whatever she decides, we'll go according to that. So they went to this tribe Bani Sa'ad to look for the witch. They said that no, she relocated to Syria. She's all the way there. So they said, okay, we're going to have to travel now all the way to this witch, all the way there. So they made a pact, they made a delegation, and they started traveling towards Syria. It's a long journey. So on the way, they got thirsty, traveling in the desert. They got so thirsty, so hungry, nothing in the area for them to survive on. They thought that now we are going to die. So Abdul Muttalib is traveling, and Quraysh, members of the Quraysh are traveling, and they are in the situation now of dire hunger and thirst. They think that they're going to die. They gave suggestion, okay, we know that we're not going to move any further than this. We're going to die here. Instead of all of us dying and no one burying the other, let's all dig our own graves, right? Let's all dig our own graves, and each one can just sit there and wait for their death, and the others can bury the one whoever dies first, right? Until the last one's left. So they were there, and then they started, some say that they started digging, and Abdul Muttalib started digging his own grave. And when he started digging into the ground, water came out. Okay. So water came out from his grave, and they all said, wait, whoa, that's a sign. They were superstitious people, right? So they said, this is a sign out of all of us, you're the only one who has been given water from this area, which means that Allah has blessed you. If you have been given water in this situation where we are very near to death, then that well that He gave you, the water that He gave you in Mecca must be yours. So they settled the dispute right there and then. They said that well is yours, let's go back to Mecca. Right? So this is how they came back, and this is how the well came into the possession of Abdul Muttalib, and this is how the well came into its existence from there onwards. Now, when Abdul Muttalib was during that dispute, right after the well of Zamzam was discovered, during that dispute, Abdul Muttalib thought to himself, wait a minute, it's only me and my son. Quraysh, there's a huge tribe. How am I going to confront them? So at that moment he thought that, only if I had more family members of my own so that I can defend myself and my family in these type of disputes. Because he only had one son. In those days, having many sons was a great thing, right? They used to take pride in him. That's why the opposite, having a girl was frowned upon, right? And we'll go into that later on as well. That's going to come into maybe the next session. They used to bury the girls alive because they had not much use in the family. It was the sons that they used to pride on because that was part of the tradition, is to establish these tribes and have a stronghold in areas in the tribe. So at that moment, this is where Abdul Muttalib, when he thought of that, he made the vow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he said, oh Allah, if you give me 10 sons, then I will sacrifice one for you. Just like Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had to sacrifice his son. So he said, if I have 10, one of them I will sacrifice for you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with many children. So let's say he had 12 sons altogether and 6 daughters, right, altogether. So he had many sons. Allah blessed him with 10. So, and the famous ones from his sons were, anybody from the sons of Abdul Muttalib? Hamzah radiallahu ta'ala, Abbas radiallahu ta'ala, Abu Talib, and then you have Harith as well, and some other famous ones, right? So he had 10 sons, and one of them was Abdullah, right, the youngest one. So when he had his son Abdullah, then came the point where, I have to fulfill my vow. Now I have to sacrifice my son. So which of the sons am I going to sacrifice, right? So in those days, they used to cast lots. So the method of doing that was they used to get arrows, right? They used to bring arrows together, write the names of someone on the arrows, and they used to cast lots, and whichever one comes out, they go according to that, right? So he got 10 arrows, He wrote the names of each of his sons on that, and he casted the lot, and he took out the arrow, and the name of who came? Abdullah's came. Abdullah's name came out. You tried it again. Abdullah's name came out. Tried it again. Abdullah's name came out. Continuously, the name of Abdullah came out all the time. So, in other words, the decision was that I have to go and sacrifice my son Abdullah in this situation to fulfill my vow. So when they were about to do that, when he was about to carry out his vow, Abu Talib came into the picture, right? One of his sons, and he said that, we can't do this, right? He's young, and he has so much, he has so much of his life left, and he can do so much. We can't do this to our, to him, right? We can't do this to our brother. And the family also came, and everybody started saying that, you can't do this to Abdullah, you can't sacrifice him, because if you will do this, because Abdul Muttalib is very famous, and everybody knows him, and if you set this trend, then this can continue in our progeny, in our descendants for years to come, right? Everybody will say that, okay, if I have 5 sons, then I'll sacrifice one, right? If I have 10 sons, then I'll sacrifice one. This will become a tradition, and from here onwards, it will become like this. So you can't do this anymore, right? So you can't do this at this moment. So at this time he said, how to resolve this? Okay, let's go to the witch, right? To decide on this matter. So they went to the witch, and the witch said, okay, I'll give you the solution for this come tomorrow. They came back the next day, and then she said, okay, what you can do is draw a lot between Abdullah and 10 camels. So you take 10 camels, put on one side, and you take Abdullah, put him on the other side, and you get the arrows and draw a lot, and then whichever one for whom it comes out, then that is the one we will sacrifice. So for example, so she said that if the arrows come out for Abdullah, right, then you add 10 more camels to the 10 camels that are there, right? So if the arrow comes to the camels, you sacrifice the camels. If the arrow comes out for Abdullah, then you add 10 more camels to the 10 camels that are there already, right? So you went and you did this, and you continue on doing this until the arrow comes out for Abdullah, right? So they started drawing the lots, took out the arrow, it came out for Abdullah. They added 10 camels, 20 now. Arrow came out again for Abdullah, they added another 10 camels. They continue on doing this until the camels reach what? 100. Until the camels reach 100. 100 camels on one side, Abdullah on the other side. He drew the lot again, and this time the arrow came out for the camels. So Abdul Muttalib said, wait, let me try it again. Took out an arrow again, came out for the camels. Did it again, came out for the camels. Then it was decided that yes, now we have to sacrifice the camels, not Abdullah. So 100 camels were in lieu of Abdullah. You get it? So then they had to sacrifice 100 camels. That is why from then onwards, I forgot to mention this, that the witch, they asked them that, to decide in this manner, what was the blood money or retribution for one human being if he is killed in your tribes? So if one person is killed, what is the blood money for that? So they said 10 camels. That is where the 10 camels came. Okay, forgot to mention that. So they said that, okay, so take the 10 camels, and this is how you will decide on this matter. So before the retribution of blood money was 10 camels for one individual who was killed. So now from here onwards, they decided that from now on it will be 100 camels for an individual who was killed unjustly, right? And from there onwards till now, this is still the same amount, until now. So from that incident until now, anyone who was killed unjustly, unfairly, then the blood money for that is 100 camels, the money or the value of 100 camels until today. So in this manner, he sacrificed 100 camels, and he distributed all of the meat and gave it to, there was so much meat, obviously 100 camels, how many people are you going to feed? So he started feeding the animals as well, the birds as well, they came and ate from the meat as well, so he fed everybody, right? So from there onwards, Abdul Muttalib, he was known as Mut'im al-Tayri fi sama. It's like he fed the birds in the skies as well, right? Mut'im al-Tayri fi sama. So in this way, Abdul Muttalib, he settled this vow of his by sacrificing 100 camels instead of sacrificing Abdullah at that moment. That's why later on, the Prophet ﷺ in his life story, he once mentioned that I am the son of the two individuals who were to be sacrificed. Right? Two individuals who were to be sacrificed. Ibn al-Dhabihain. And who are those? One is Ismail and Abdullah. Right? So I'm the son of these two. Right? Who were to be sacrificed. So anyways, this is where we come up to the story of Abdul Muttalib and his son Abdullah. And after that, the story starts with Abdullah gets married to Amina and the life process.
You said Abdul Muttalib had, what's it called? A dispute with the Quraysh, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the Quraysh part of Abdul Muttalib.
Yeah.
Abdul Muttalib was Quraysh itself.
Yeah. But obviously, it's this is one individual on one side, claiming that it's mine, and there's a whole tribe, right? So they wanted, this is a collective thing, right? This is for the whole tribe. This is for all of us, right? You can't just lay claim to this yourself, right?
Oh.
So in that manner, they wanted it to be distributed amongst everybody, right? The whole Quraysh, in that sense. So Abdul Muttalib continued to deny that. I found that it's mine. Okay, so this is, inshallah, we'll stop here. And we reach here until the process. Also, inshallah, most probably Sheikh Yaqub will discuss this as well. The next session should be regarding the religious landscape of the people around Mecca before the coming of the Prophet ﷺ and the conditions of the Arabs at that time, right? The pre-Islamic era, the conditions of the Arabs at that time before the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ. That is very important to study as well, because that plays a big role in understanding how significant the arrival of the Prophet ﷺ was and his mission was, right? So you really need to understand what was the landscape, religious aspect, the action, the behavior, the attitude of the Arabs and so on, and their actions, and the level of kufr and so on. What was that pre-arrival of the Prophet ﷺ, pre-birth, and then afterwards, how the Prophet ﷺ completely transformed that whole society, right? So that's very important as well to know. Inshallah, we'll stop here. Any questions? Yes.
Sheikh, about the ancestors of the Prophet, I wanted to ask if they believed in Jannah, Jahannam, and if they go are they righteous people?
So that'll be part of the next session. So that's the religious aspect of the others, right? So it should come in that, because before that there were Christians, there were noble Christians as well, and the Prophet did see in a dream some of those individuals who were following that religion in Jannah, right? So that's part of that section as well, inshallah, that should be covered as well.
From what we know about the ancestors, or rather the tribe of the Prophet ﷺ, is that a lot of them were idol worshippers, right? They would associate idolatry with Allah, like they would believe in Allah, but then they would still worship idols. Given that, the 20 people that came before the Prophet ﷺ were such a huge part of that culture, were they also idol worshippers? Because when we consider them from a pure lineage, and Islam wasn't there at the time, and from what I understand, Christianity was largely lost.
Still jumping the gun.
Oh, okay.
You're jumping the gun.
Okay.
That should come in the next session.
Inshallah.
Okay,
Just too
inshallah.
curious.
You can't have everything right now, right? If I give you a piece of the and then it's gonna spoil the next session, right? It's like tidbits here and there, just to be continued. Right? So that should be covered in the next session as well. How did idol worship come into Arabia? Right? That's one of the questions. How did it come into Arabia? These kids, they may know. Who brought in idol worship? You guys remember his name? Louder? His son.
Ibn Luay.
Inshallah, that should come next episode, inshallah. Any other questions? What time is Isha?
9:45.
45?
Yeah,
You guys following us?
I guess so.
Inshallah. I heard you guys read late here, that's right. Then you guys read 10:30 or something.
Yesterday was 10, it just changed today.
Inshallah, that's good. Someone time.
Do we know much about, given the lineage of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, do we know much about people that came immediately after Yusuf alayhi salam?
It's off Laura, right? So that's the confirm after that. It's very hard to get, pinpoint the names.
And are they still following the Jews? We're talking about Joseph. Are they still following memorizing the lineage? Because maybe I think they're still waiting for a prophet.
Not anymore. They're not expecting anyone else. Until the Savior. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Stop there. Yeah. From Hosea onwards, he established everything there, right? So even when Hosea was there, Hashem was there, Zamzam was there. Covered. They didn't know where it was. Yeah, so they had to get water sources from other places. Outside of Mecca. They used to bring the water and have wells in different areas, so you had to bring water inside. SubhanAllah,